As soon as you take a camera and point it somewhere, you already made a subjective decision about a documentary. And there's a Danish scriptwriter who recently said that the only difference between fiction films and documentary films is that in fiction films the actors get paid. I find that angle really interesting, and the thing is, for me, working on a film like this, when I'm a part of this process, we very much talk about the emotional content of the film and what kind of atmosphere and what kind of feeling there is in the film, apart of course from the actual storyline that's also very important to bring through, but we talk very much about the vibe, the atmosphere and the ambiences. For this film I was, apart from being a sound designer, I was also the music supervisor, so I've also kind of been thinking a lot about the musical side of the whole film. But for me there's not really that much of a difference. When you do sound design, you also do music in a way. You just, instead of using a guitar and a string orchestra, you use a car and the sound of rain. I mean, you have different sounds that in a way are your instruments, and your instruments to create rhythm, dynamics, ambience, atmosphere, and so on. Spending a lot of time getting ambiences, ambient sounds, city sounds, sounds from the environments that we're going to portray, so that I know how is this environment sounding. I think that's immensely inspiring and very, very important, because when I talk about the subjective approach to doing a documentary, then you still have to really think about each sound in a realistic content, so to say. You have to be aware of what is this environment you're portraying. What I tell Lise is that it's important that when they do these establishing shots, or do, like, for example, these scenes from the youth camp, when she's with the audience, then don't speak, or don't let your photographer speak. Record the sound, even though it's just the camera mic. If you record the sound when you do these establishing shots, then I later on can use that sound as just a background sound, as ambience for the film. And suddenly, then for each establishing shot, then suddenly there's a whole archive of ambiences as well. That's generally how, if the shooting is so gung-ho crazy as it was in this film, then that's usually my advice to the filmmaker, to really respect the sound when you're shooting the film as much as you're respecting the image. The thing is that if you bombard the audience with sound, then it won't be long before the audience is really bored, because just a constant stream of noise is just plain boring. I mean, we live in this culture where there's so much noise in our everyday life, and in that sense, talking about noise in our cities, for me as a sound designer, that's kind of a gift, because when doing a film like this, you can kind of have all these noises playing around, and we as people of the modern world are kind of just saying, well, that's how it is, that's how it sounds. But then at the same time, being in charge of the soundtrack, then you also have this ability to suddenly say, well, now we remove all sound, and now we don't hear the exterior world, and now we focus on the interior world.